Join us today as we talk a little bit about the writers and actors strike, as well as some other issues related to that and Hollywood's kind of deeper problems. Welcome back to those who've been here before. Welcome to those who are new to the channel. It's the Geek Cabal channel. I'm Bobby. Jim over here. And yeah, that didn't come out smooth at all, did it? Obviously, we don't rehearse these videos.
Let's rehearse. What's that?
That's part of the appeal, though, I think. Let us know in the comments.
Maybe we need writers.
Yeah. The writer's strike is affecting us as well, apparently. So yeah, like I said, today we're going to be talking about the writer's strike, the actor's strike, and some larger problems that I feel are related to it that don't really seem to be getting coverage in the news. I hear a handful of YouTubers kind of beating around the bush, but overall, I think there's some deeper problems that are driving it. But Jim, do you want to tell us what you know of the strike thus far? What we've been able to glean from articles?
Well, right now, it's a kind of a combination of a few different factors. One is with streaming services that people aren't getting residuals on that. They're kind of being paid as a one-time thing versus if they wrote for a movie, they would get residuals from that movie. So there is some talk about that. And to be honest, that is a fair gripe because,
yeah.
To be honest, what's in the theaters, yeah, you get the ticket sales there and you get the movie sales afterwards, but pretty much there's just a short amount of time that they're in theaters now, and then they go straight to streaming services, and a lot of people are not buying those movies anymore. So how do those residuals get paid out once they get moved to streaming services? So there is gripe there, and I was gonna say, besides that, obviously, I know with the actors, a lot of that are striking because they're like, hey, these people need to get paid, too, just like we get paid.
Well, they're also concerned about the residuals for the same thing, because they're not to interrupt here, but a very early example of this was actually Scarlett Johansson's talk as far as I believe it's Black Widow. She was upset with Marvel because they were going to dump it onto streaming almost immediately. And she was just kind of like, well, hey, my contract doesn't really cover that. And, what kind of took the job assuming that like it was going to be in theaters for a little while. And you're being in bad faith here with me. And yeah, she made a big stink over it. And at the time, a lot of people were like, oh, it's another millionaire complaining. But no, she had legitimate complaints. And now it appears that the rest of the Actors Guild agrees with her. But yeah, go on.
Well, I'm gonna say that's about as much much as I've got on
okay.
that. I know there's more details on it, and
the other big part is the AI part that both the writers and the actors are concerned about. The writers think that the studios are just going to basically employ old Chat GPT to write their scripts, which good luck, they'll be about as good as the current scripts, which is to say they'll suck. And the actors think that they're going to get the Peter Cushing from Rogue One treatment, only they're not going to wait for them to be dead to do it. And I think both of them have legitimate concerns, because I think Hollywood actually would try the Chat GPT experiment.
Well, from the screenshots I've seen from The Flash, it looks like that's what they did with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, they might have. I haven't seen it yet, so.
If not, I don't know what they did, but it does not look like Nicolas Cage. But it's supposed to be Nicolas Cage's Superman in it.
No.
But you know what, though? I think there is some benefits with AI, because I think AI could come up with a decent like idea for a story. But but the problem is that AI is so far away from making general human interaction seem normal.
Right, because...
well, then again, though, I think some writers are way far away from making normal human interaction sound normal.
This is also true. Well, I think the big problem is it's not really AI. It's basically machine learning, and there's a difference. And the machine can't actually think. It just takes a set of data that you give it and try to deliver the correct answer based on its sample. And yeah, you can plug all kinds of things in there, but since most writing is definitely not Shakespeare, like just through sheer mass, you're going to end up feeding it bad information. And that's why, as one guy explained it, yeah, you can use it to cheat on tests as long as you're cool with the 70%, because that's about all it's really going to get, because it can't understand complication and nuance and things that actually require you to know it. It'll just try to find the right answer, and it's only going to go with the aggregate of what it has. So, and you can't just feed it Shakespeare, because then it's going to be in Shakespearean English, which no one wants that.
Unless you're making Romeo and Juliet with
Leonardo DiCaprio. Unless you're the 90s Romeo and Juliet set in the modern day, but with Shakespearean dialogue, which I personally actually like that movie, but that's just me because of the contradiction. But yeah, so that's part of the problem, and you don't face that with replacing the actors with CGI. That's a whole other realm of programming, and that they're getting closer and closer. Because I know whenever I watched Rogue One, and all of a sudden Tarkin was there, I was like, okay, well, he's not going to turn around. He's going to be facing out into space. We're just going to see the black. They just used a voiceover, a deep fake for the voice. And then he actually and then there was his reflection in the glass, and it's like, okay, that's all they're really going to do, because they don't want to show a real shot of his face, because we all know Peter Cushing is dead. And we know that's going to have to be CGI, and it's not going to look great. And then he turned around, and I was like, well, it's not exactly Peter Cushing, but it's pretty damn close. And I actually turned to my friend, and I was like, didn't Peter Cushing die like 20 years ago? Because we're basically looking at him here. And yeah, so I mean, the technology's close, and so I understand the actors' concerns. I think the biggest block to that would be the actors collectively saying, no, we're never going to agree to that, and you're going to have to get our permission to use our likeness, otherwise we're going to sue you. And I think they'd be on strong legal ground, me not being a lawyer, to be crystal clear. And so, I mean, the studio's only counter would be, well, it's going to be in all your contracts, and if we don't hire you, we'll hire someone else. Which, I mean, Bill Maher kind of talked about this in one of his shows, one of his little things talking about this, and basically saying, he's like, look, acting is not hard. Like 90% of acting, you can pull people in off the street and they can do it. That 10% where you need your Denzel Washingtons, your Tom Cruise, your Helen Mirren, someone like that. Yeah, for that 10%, you need the people that have real talent. But the other 90%, I mean, as Bill Maher put it, hell, even he used to be an actor, So, well, yeah, I think the actors do have legitimate concern, but I also think collectively they can get past it.
And I think that also goes to show that I think movies need to go back to that, where you kind of have the one anchor actor, and then you have, kind of a cast of, lesser known people. Because usually, I think I go back to the original Star Wars A New Hope, and, you did have Harrison Ford, who was, somewhat of a veteran actor. He was still fairly unknown at that time. But then you had Alec Guinness.
Alec Guinness and Peter Cushing.
Yes, to really pull in, the rest of that talent. And I don't know, I think you end up, still getting a really great movie like that, because you get people that have the skills to, do it. Maybe not the perfect skills, but then they have that person there that can,
Yeah, there's without going down a divergence here, for those of you who haven't seen Wayne's World 2, there's a scene that perfectly encapsulates this. It's the end of the movie mimics the end of The Graduate. So Wayne is trying to get to the chapel to stop Cassandra from getting married. He pulls into this gas station, and this guy's like, "Oh yeah, Gordon Street," and he's kind of fumbling it. And Wayne's like, "Hold on, I know this is a bit part, but I think we can do a little bit better than this." They take the guy out and bring in Charlton Heston. He's like, Gordon Street. I remember it like it was yesterday. And Wayne's in tears by the time it's done, and it's like, yeah, veteran actors would definitely need more of them in the movies. To Jim's point there, and I've seen people say that now basically the only really big, real old style movie star we have left is basically Tom Cruise, and I don't think they're wrong.
Well,
I mean, there's a couple others maybe, but
I think that's why they're expecting Mission Impossible just to annihilate the box office compared to some of the others. And
yeah, well, that and Maverick did do that.
So.
Top Gun too. But again, Tom Cruise is the anchor, but the other actors were good in that movie. They were mostly lesser knowns, but not entirely unknowns. Is it Miles Teller, the guy that played Mr. Fantastic in the abominable Fantastic Four movie? Don't judge him by that. He's a decent actor. And Val Kilmer with the cameo there, barely being able to talk. Yeah, that almost brought a tear to my eye, by the way, because he literally barely can talk because of throat cancer. Yeah, you need movies like that, and I think there's some larger problems that this is starting to expose, and a big one is just looking at the box office so far this summer. I don't think the giant juggernaut productions are going to be able to keep going. Like Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. Decent movie, I mean, yeah, it gets a lot of bad press, but but it also gets praise. And I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it was worth going to see, and I appreciate that I saw it in the theater. But I think a lot of people have decided that they're not going to risk it, and they're just going to go wait till it comes out on streaming. And so without the box office receipts, streaming, yeah, sure, people watch it, but say it's on Disney Plus. What is Disney Plus now? Like $10 a month?
I believe so. Heck, it may even be more than that now.
Okay, well, for argument's sake, let's say it's $10 a month. Okay, so I can go to the theater and spend more than that on one ticket to go watch the movie. That's before sodas and popcorns and everything else. And while I'm watching the movie, I'm interrupted by dumb teenagers on their cell phones or dumb adults on their cell phones, and just people generally being rude. And hopefully the theater's climate controlled. Hopefully the popcorn tastes good. For $10 for a bucket of popcorn that costs $1. Hopefully the soda machine's functional. I can do all these things in the hopes all this all works out and spend 3 times what I'm paying for a whole month of Disney Plus, where I also get access to the other 4 Indiana Jones movies, all the Star Wars movies, and all of everything else. I mean, for a lot of people, that's a really easy math choice to make there, and it does not favor theaters. So, I think part of the problem is these giant budgeted movies, because that's just not where things are right now. If Hollywood's smart, we're going to see the resurgence of the $50 and $60 million movie, which, to Jim's previous point, is going to mean one high-paid actor and a bunch of virtual nobodies. And that's how you keep the budget down. Ditch most of the CGI baloney, which means that the days of the comic book movie might be coming to an end, unless they go back to being good. And again, I don't think the Marvels is going to be what turns it around, but maybe, I don't know. So you have that problem. The movies just cost too much for the way the current market is working. But also to that point, the current market is like a piece of shattered glass, where you had a market and now it's in a million pieces. Because it used to be, go to the theater, and then if you were lucky, in 6 months it was going to be out on home video. When there's videos, it's closer to a year. But on DVDs, it's about 6 months. And then at some point after that, it would be on cable. And then along came Netflix, and we kind of jumbled things, but that's the way it used to work. So movies had these clearly defined segments where they were making money all along the way, and until they eventually wound up on basic cable. And even there, the basic cable was paying the studio for it. Now, the movie comes out, and a month later, I can get it on my TV. I can bypass the home video entirely, just pay to subscribe to whatever service it's on, or just rent or buy it in my home on Vudu or something. And so you have this, so you got a shorter window for money. And you also have a problem that I tried to talk about in some of the D&D videos we've done, but I never really got around to it. And that's the idea of like a shared experience. It's related to that. So, like, Jim and I were in the same grade growing up, roughly the same age. And so, if we were to write down a list of all the movies we watched before we were, say, 18, I'm willing to bet there's a hell of a lot of overlap on that list. Because there were only so many movies coming out through so many avenues. They were in theaters, then on paid cable, then on basic cable. Same thing with TV shows. And if you wanted to advertise those movies, you advertised in the theaters, put some advertisements on TV and in newspapers, and made movie posters. Now, studios they're cutting a trailer. They've got to make a pre-trailer for the trailer to put onto YouTube so you know when the trailer's coming out. They've got to advertise on Reddit, and Facebook, and Twitter, and Instagram, and probably a dozen things that the kids use that I know nothing about, TikTok. You've got to heavily advertise in foreign countries with different advertisements depending on the countries. China, not so big of fans of certain things, for instance. And then you've still got your TV advertisements. You still have to have your trailer on in front of movies. You still have to make the movie posters. Your advertisement budget has just blown up because you're advertising everywhere, hoping to drive the maximum number of people into the theater because that's the only way you can make your money back. And so that system's just unsustainable. They're going to have to acknowledge that things have changed, but part of that system is the problem that the writers and actors are facing, mainly the writers, I believe, in that they're having to write for the streaming services now. And that's instead of writing for a movie where it's like one writer and maybe a co-writer, there's like 10 of them in a room. They hammer out the episodes. They're done in like a week. And then it's, okay, we'll call you back sometime. And they're not paid anywhere near as much. And it's just the constant content churn. It's several things just all coming together to make it damn near impossible for these people to actually make a living. Because the streamers need constant content, but it doesn't pay very much and there's no residuals. And then the movies are spending ridiculous amounts of money on advertising, so they're not going to want to pay the writers and the actors as much as they are. And the solution, in my opinion, is just to scale down the movies. Go back to, $60 to $100 million movies. Those can still make plenty of money.
And I think the technology's there to do it. I mean, yeah. We made comments on this about the Mandalorian, is that some of the technology's there for the using the Unreal Engine to generate background, so you don't have to do on-site type filming stuff. You can do a lot of that in a small studio on a decent budget, or you buy the technology once, you've got it. But no, when you were talking there, it just kind of made me think that even back when I was when we were teenagers, the amount of movies that I went to go see in theaters, like now it's like I'll go see, science fiction movies. I'll go see some fantasy movies. But most of the other genres, like action, thrillers, a lot of those, like, I usually just skip. And I can tell you even back in the day, even though I wasn't a fan of it, there's plenty of times that I've gone on, went on a date or something and saw, a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
I don't think in a million years I'd go and see one in the theaters now because, one, ticket prices. Even our local theater here, the matinee price is the same price as a regular showing.
Jasper?
Washington. Yeah, Jasper. Yeah. And, $8-10 a ticket or whatever it is, even for a matinee, I mean, hell, I remember, again, in Washington, at one point it was like 50 to 75 cents for some of the days to go watch a movie.
Yeah.
Not saying that it needs to be that. I'm not like, it was back in the day, we was able to go and...
No, not going to talk about the 5-cent Cokes at Walker's or anything.
Yeah, well, hey, yeah, there was a pharmacy here in town that, even when we were growing up, used to actually have a soda jerk.
Yeah, whenever we say pharmacy, we mean more of a what they used to, it's a drugstore. It's the same term, but drugstores used to have a bunch of other things in them. It wasn't like CVS's. Well, it's kind of like CVS's now, except they also had, like you said, soda machine, soda jerk. They'd sell root beer floats and some other things there. I don't remember what all they sold.
Because I remember a glass of Coke there was 16 cents, I believe, is what it was for a 16 ounce. I think it was a.
Yeah, it was pretty cheap.
And it was good because, I mean, it was a genuine, I mean, that's one thing. We can get into talking about sodas at some point, but one thing that I think we lost is actually where they used to have somebody hand make your soda like that, where they, like I said, when I say a soda jerk, if you've never seen it, just look it up sometime. But they call that because of the way that you jerk on the handle to.
Yeah, although given the internet, don't go too far into the results. Like you will, I'm sure, encounter something that has nothing to do with it, and you won't want to see it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a rule 34.
Oh, there. I'm sure there is.
So, but no,
don't look that up either if you don't know what it is.
But kind of going back, talking to the writing stuff. I've got the book out here because at one point in time I wanted to take a crack at trying to actually write a script, because I don't think I have the talent to do quite the descriptive writing that it would take to write a book, even though I do at some point probably try to revisit that. But no, I
might be the time to hire a second hand.
Yes.
Just saying, there's some people that have some time on their hands right now. Not to joke at their expense,
but there is, there's obviously something also wrong with the writing today. Not just and not getting anything political, not getting anything like that, but just the communication, the way that people communicate to each other, and some of the series that we've watched, some of the movies we've seen. There's even just on a first viewing, a lot of times I'm like, did they not think of this? Wouldn't that have been like the first thing somebody would have thought of? Or, people don't say that, or people don't do that. It's not how actual people act.
Yeah. Well, to your point, and this is a personal pet peeve, I think a lot of it, and I hate to blame one single person for this, but I'm going to, is Joss Whedon and his Whedonisms that have infected just how people actually, unfortunately, do communicate with one another. And I think the writing reflects that. You see it in comics too, where people just they say things and you're just like, normal people don't talk like that. And maybe it's because we're in the middle of nowhere, but I do think some normal people actually do talk like that, unfortunately. And it's the art of saying all kinds of things without saying a damn thing, or just being completely nonsensical. And unfortunately, it's been popularized. So,
well, but then again, though, maybe it's me getting out of touch with this generation. I've seen some things.
Us in our 40s out of touch with the pulse of the current generation? No, Jim. No. Well, it's clearly the world, not us.
Well, no. I try to keep up on things. Me and
I'm joking.
I know, but me and Owen, we try to keep up in meme culture and all that. Try to keep up on the latest, what's funny, what's not, and after I saw the latest TikTok trend, I just don't know if I have any faith in humanity anymore. Have you seen this? The NPC. It's the NPC TikTok trend.
Oh no!
Where I guess
the last TikTok trend I saw was the sleepy chicken.
No, this is the NPC where it's only done on live TikTok streams where someone will be doing a live stream, and every time somebody pays for an emoji, they do an NPC action for it. Like if they give them a rose, they go, "Oh, I'm smelling a rose. I'm smelling a rose." So if they keep spamming roses, they'll keep saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm just like, okay, maybe this is why the writers are writing like this, because if you enjoy that stuff, that's all on you. Just understand that a lot of us are don't understand that. I don't get it. Because it's just mindless.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was all over when I heard about the Tide Pod challenge, but humanity has proven that there is no bottom. So I guess it's going to keep going lower and lower.
I guess people survive that. So
yeah, I guess.
But
unfortunately.
But no,
I shouldn't say that. I'm sure it's dumb kids who don't know who should know better but don't. I shouldn't sit here and wish that there were consequences, but part of me is like, there should have been, so they'd learn a lesson. But obviously, if you die, you don't really learn a lesson now, do you?
Yeah, you learn the ultimate lesson. That's the final chapter. But no.
Sorry, folks. It got a little dark there for a moment.
But no, I've been having Owen revisit some of the movies I grew up with. We actually last week watched Big Trouble in Little China, and obviously it's
if this were a video game, you would have unlocked an achievement with that.
I can say, definitely is over the top, but like most 80s movies were. But if you go and look at the dialogue, the dialogue still flowed. It still meant, it was like Kurt Russell. You could say, okay, that's That's how people would talk in that situation. That's how people would act. He's a truck driver. He's going to be, like
loud, boisterous, and especially since we established at the beginning of the movie, he's a guy who we don't know who the hell he's talking to on the radio. He's just talking, and God only knows who, because it seems to be to a general audience. He's the precursor to what we're doing, apparently.
Well, and but it establishes his character that he thinks he's the main character in his own story. I mean, obviously, you are the main character in your own story, but
he is the main character, but he's not actually the hero of the story. That's kind of the point, is that like he's actually like the parody of the big dumb action star almost. And I think Wang's actually the real hero, or Egg Shen, if we really look into it.
Well, I don't know. The knife throw was a.
Yeah, I mean, he did take out Lo Pan, so spoiler alert for a movie from 1986, if I remember right, which if you haven't seen, just wait to the end of this video, watch the rest of us, then drop what you're doing and go watch Big Trouble in Little China. But yeah.
But no, I mean, so you've got movies there, movies in the 90s. We did a post on the Geek Cabal Facebook page talking about the movies that came out in 94.
Yeah, and specifically the month of October 1994. What all was it? It was Jurassic Park,
Shawshank Redemption,
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, Forrest Gump.
And The Lion King, where we're all simultaneously in theaters.
And all were successful, too. So it's not like one of them bombed because of whatever. I mean...
Right.
I mean, obviously, one did better. One of them did
obviously,
better.
I think Jurassic Park or The Lion King was the real financial winner there. But still, like, just think about that lineup, folks.
Well, and even Jurassic Park had been in theaters for a year. Yeah. It stayed in theaters for almost a year after it was released because, I mean, people were blown away by it.
Yeah.
And not just the special effects. I mean, the special effects obviously helped, but it was good writing. I mean, it's Jeff Goldblum. I mean, it's
Jeff Goldblum. Sam Neill.
Yep, Sam Neill. Gosh, you want to talk about
Laura Dern? I mean, like it's got a lineup.
And even into the 2000s. I mean, well, I think either late 90s to early 2000s. I say talking Sam Neill, Event Horizon again. Unfortunately, didn't do so good in the box office, but it has become a cult classic afterwards. And again, it's just. I don't know. It feels like that time of movies is gone. And I understand that there are some movies that just would not jive in today's world. Obviously, that's not going to, But a lot of those movies we just mentioned, I don't think have anything that would be, even Big Trouble in Little China. Some people will say, well...
Some people at the time it was released had some issues with it, apparently.
But even then, I think a lot of people, you could do a movie still like that, obviously, you have to be, more sensitive with, with racial stereotypes and stuff like that to, keep it in line with things. But I think movies still like that could work. And like,
well, I mean, to your point, even a movie like The Core, which is objectively terrible in all kinds of ways, although it's highly entertaining, the writing there is competent. I mean, aside from the scientific parts, but like how people act, that's how people act. Whoever wrote that understood human interaction at the basic level.
That, and we're also missing out on people that actually can tell you how it feels to get stabbed in the back when.
Yeah. Well, we lost a great man in Christopher Lee. Like that was a serious blow to the acting world.
Because he, if you don't know, during the scene where Saruman gets stabbed by Wormtongue,
it's a deleted scene in Return of the King, so you'd see it in the extended cut. But go on.
Peter Jackson was trying to tell him how to act when he got stabbed in the back, and he's like, "You don't understand." He's like, "That's not what people do when they get stabbed."
I gave him Peter. Have you ever seen a man stabbed in the back? Well, no, I can't say that I have. I have. I know what to do. It's like, well, okay then, because he was at the SAS, right, for the British. Yeah, during World War II and afterwards. So, and that's kind of another thing is we're losing all these people who really lived. Like a lot of old comics guys were in World War II or Korea or Vietnam, and like You know, and not just, you know, the people that fought in wars, but like, you know, that experienced real things in life, you know, that lived through like the civil rights movement, you know, that were alive when we landed on the moon.
Well, heck, yeah, he actually met J.R. Tolkien, so
Yeah, Christopher Lee in particular lived a really interesting life. Always claimed he was a direct descendant of Charlemagne. Don't know if that's true or not, but you know, why not? And the guy like even commented on like Rob Zombie albums, you know, like, and spoke highly of them, by the way, in case you're curious. But yeah, like, and apparently he was really devastated when Peter Cushing died. The two of them were actually really close friends after doing all those movies for Hammer Horror. But yeah, just kind of getting back, like we're dealing with people that some writers just don't seem to get people. And what Jim was kind of alluding to, we did another video several months ago, is me and my nephew, and we kind of talked about this, and it's not so much the particular message, it's the fact that the message is more important than the story. And that's a problem. It doesn't matter if it's a left or right message. When that becomes your overriding goal, you're going to fail. You know, older writers understood how to do this. You know, you look at Star Trek. Yeah, there's the episodes that it's like insanely on the nose, and then there's the other episodes where it's actually really, really subtle, and there's the here's the action adventure story we all came for, but if you're willing to look, here's the deeper meaning. And a lot of writers today, not all of them, just can't do that part. They know this part, but they think this part needs to be this part. And they don't realize that the average person doesn't want to be preached to by their entertainment.
Yeah, because if you can tell a narrative,
again, no matter the message, they don't want it.
And I think if you can tell the narrative, and the story, and that idea, you know, is not just in your face, but it like Star Trek 6.
Yeah,
that is a good example.
Yeah, that's my go-to example.
Because you know, I knew that there was a, you know, an underlying plot, and there was, you know, it was related to something real world, because that's how they did all the movies. But you know, it's like until you actually told me how, yeah, this is what they're actually kind of relaying it to.
Check out our video on Star Trek 6 for further explanation of this topic.
It's done so well. Well, and going back again to the actual original series in the 60s, one of the things was having it, you know, Uhura on the bridge.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they were showing a future where, you know, race, gender, none of that meant, you know, didn't held people back from being, you know, in a prominent position on the bridge.
Uhura being on the bridge was very critical, and Nichelle Nichols has said before that she was considering leaving the show, and Martin Luther King was actually the one that, you know, spoke directly to her and said, no, you have no idea how important it is, you know, seeing you on the show, showing a future where we've moved past this. And the same thing with Chekhov, because it was during the Cold War. So to have a Russian with what is nominally an American cast, aside from Scotty and Spock, who's a Vulcan, no idea what his mom's nation of origin is, you know, you had that in Spock as well, you know, representing a person of mixed background, although it's an alien, but the point was a person of mixed background. And just to have this cohesive group, you know, to show a future where they just look past all this, to the point that there is an episode all about this. The one with Lokai, and I can't remember the other guy's name. They're literally half black and white, and it's one of them it's black and white, the other one it's white and black. And they're sitting there trying to explain to the Enterprise crew, the problem is like, well, can't you see? Like, I'm clearly different from him. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And they're like, well, I'm white on this half, and he's black on this half. And they're like, so what? Clearly you two emerged from the same species at one point. Like, what the hell are you trying to say? And they're going on, and they're like, you're the dumbest two people we've ever met. This is all completely illogical. And they get back to their homeworld and find out it's been completely consumed in violence, and it's all been destroyed. Also, you ever check that episode out? Frank Gorshin plays one of them, better known as the Riddler in the original Batman TV series, which everyone should watch. It is zany but great.
And, you know, again,
and Adam West is awesome.
I say, and in that episode, though, I mean, even though it's obviously on the nose what they're talking about,
it's on the nose, but it's also showing like how a more advanced race would look at what we do. because they would look at us and be like, "What's the difference?" And we'd be like, "Oh, the more ignorant among us would be like, "Oh, look at this! They're black and we're white, and they're Asian, and and the aliens would be like, "You're all humans. You're less genetically different than two monkeys sitting on the same branch in Africa." It's a fact, by the way. You can check that out. Racial divergence far more recent in humans than it was in other primates. So far less genetic difference between any two people on the planet. A little interesting factoid for you folks out there.
But what the point of all that is that the writing was competent. It didn't smash you in the face with this kind of stuff. It's just kind of like, hey, here's something you may come across, and I don't know, even from the '60s, even though it was kind of hokey writing at times. I think there's a lot of those things I still like to watch, and
yeah, I mean, even the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine still had that kind of writing, and we see that writing elsewhere. This is a far more recent, like last 10 years it seems, that it's just become the message has been the point. And again, it doesn't matter what the message is. When you're at that level, like, no one wants to hear it. It would be just the same if Hollywood were all of a sudden super right leaning. No one would be like, all right, fine, we get it. And it'd be the same thing. It's not a matter of which side the message is coming from. It's the fact that the message has become too important to the writers. And so that's driving people from stopping watching the movies and the shows.
Now, I think like we just did a review for the Indiana Jones movie, and I think they did an honestly good job of toning back that there's this upfront message. I mean, there's a little bit of a message there with, but it's not like smashing you in the face. It's, it's actually a lot like our Star Trek ones that, Indy's getting old. He's not able to do the things he's,
right. I think Indiana Jones. I know it's getting a lot of flack for this, but I don't think it's as beating you in the face with it as people are making it out to be. Yes, she's more physically competent. She's in her 20s, I'm assuming, or 30s. Indy's in his 70s. I'm in my 40s. I am more physically capable than Harrison Ford in all likelihood. Well, maybe. I say that. Apparently he's still pretty ripped. But
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm assuming I would be. And that wouldn't be like oh, look at this guy. He's over the top. They're clearly trying to... I'm a younger person, so of course I'm probably in better shape. All things being equal.
But I think, though, the fact that the movie was more about, the story and less about, slamming you in the head with some sort of message,
it wasn't trying to be like, oh, here's Indy's replacement. Get on board with the girl boss or get out. It wasn't anything like that. Or at least that's not how we took it.
I mean, obviously, I think they were trying to make her likable, and I think, my honest critique with that was that I don't think she had a redemption arc yet. I think she was on her way there, but...
there are flaws there. It's not perfect.
But, I mean, it was an enjoyable movie. It would be one that I would probably go back and watch again and not have any real issues with that.
Right. But to kind of bring this back around to the strike and the problems leading to it, one of the problems with that actually is streaming, because now, say I actually listen to the reviews and I don't go watch Indiana Jones. What else am I going to do? I don't know. I can watch all of Columbo somewhere, or God only knows how many shows are on streaming. I have all these options. I don't have to go to the theater. It's not just a matter of watching the movies at home. I can binge watch whatever series Netflix has put on. Say I somehow haven't watched Stranger Things. I've got 4 seasons I can watch. That's going to occupy several afternoons where I'm not going to go to the movie theater. And what am I going to pay for that? 1 month subscription to Netflix, that's something like 40 hours of entertainment. Of course I'm going to do that. Who isn't? I'm saying this as someone that loves going to the movies. I love the show, the atmosphere, all that. But like what Jim said earlier here, about 10, 15 years ago, I just made the decision that there's just certain kinds of movies that unless I hear they're great, I don't need to see them in theaters. I don't need to see a comedy in a theater. the theater isn't going to enhance that experience as far as the sound and the technical aspects. Now, it will sing it with a crowd that enjoys it because everyone's going to laugh along with it. It's going to feel like a communal experience. But other than that, and I can achieve that by just watching it with a few friends or something.
Yeah, like I said, it takes the right movie because I said we did go see Renfield.
Yeah.
And that was okay. I mean, it was not a great movie, but I mean, it was funny and it was, yeah, but I think the reason why I went to go watch it because it was a little bit of action, a little bit, over the top, gory, whatever type, and it was a comedy. So yeah, it kind of had everything there, but
or a little bit more recently, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, I knew going in, I liked the first two, probably going to like the third one. I like the other stuff James Gunn has done. And it's the last movie he's going to do for Marvel, at least for a while. And it's, big special effects kind of extravaganza movie. Like, I know I want to see this in a theater. I wanted to see Ant-Man in a theater for similar reasons, just scheduling never worked out. And then it was gone, and then it was on Disney Plus. So I didn't feel bad because, I can just watch this at home on Disney Plus at some point. And similar for Black Panther 2. Just never got around to it until then it was on Disney Plus. I was like, all right, I'll just watch it here. Also, the movie turned out to be okay. I'd heard it's kind of long. It is long-winded, but other than that, that it's a good movie. Definitely feel the loss of Chadwick Boseman. And for everything I heard, he's a pretty good guy. That was a loss, a real loss. But coming back to this, it's like I do feel for the writers and the actors because I think they have legitimate complaints. But I also think that there's definitely some writers that they're probably not going to survive this, and Hollywood's going to use this as an excuse to cut some dead weight. And collectively, and I hate to say this about anyone doing a job, but none of us are going to regret it. If anything, the quality might increase if we're lucky. Or it could go the other way, and Hollywood could look at this as the chance to get rid of all those pesky veteran writers who demand more money and who, question things, and we're left with just the not-so-good writers, in which case everything just keeps going downhill, and we'll just stick with watching reruns from the 80s,
Yeah, it just depends on how
there's all kinds of crap from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, 90s, and aught years I've never seen before, I could take the rest of my life and still never catch it all up. Not going to bother me.
No, I guess we'll have to see how that, if they do that, how that turns out, because I know during the pandemic when they did some, rounds of layoffs and different things like that, a lot of companies had to learn how to obviously cope with a smaller workforce, but at the same time, you ended up getting a more resilient, a better, put together workforce as well. And that could be the result of this is that, you get, maybe a higher caliber of people come out out the end, either veterans or not.
Yeah, that could definitely be a result. Another, not to interrupt you here, Jim, but another possible result is that they try to start weaning people off of constant content on the streaming services. By making them more efficient force, that means they're probably going to produce fewer movies and shows.
Well, so the simple solution is that you make a movie that goes along with a set of streaming, services. So, say you take The Mandalorian, and then you make a movie that ties The Mandalorian to Ahsoka or something, so that to get that complete experience, you feel like, okay, I've got to watch these parts. You get the story out of the way. This is something that the Eternals could have definitely gone through.
Yeah,
is have a story to introduce.
Have a season or two to introduce the 9 main characters, and then do the movie.
And then do the movie, because I think the Eternals look like a great, visually was a great movie, but was terribly written. And
I remember your reaction a third of the way through when I reminded you that there's still 6 more characters we haven't even met yet, and just oh my god, that's which was exactly how I felt. But yeah, I think Marvel's positioned to do that if they do it well. But Marvel also kind of has to bring people back because they've definitely lost people. Star Wars is in a position to do that if they can get a competent someone who's not Kathleen Kennedy running things.
Well, like I say, we already got Ahsoka that's on its way here, so we'll have to see how that goes. But
Hopefully well, because I like Grand Admiral Thrawn. Rosario Dawson's decent as Ahsoka. Like, hope works out. Of course, don't know if Ray Stevenson's character is going to survive, because he didn't.
Yeah,
so
that was a devastating bit of news to hear that. But
yeah, there's a lot of things. But so yeah, it could go a lot of ways. I mean, hell, tomorrow, like before I even get this video uploaded, they could announce they've reached an agreement. I doubt it.
But I think anything we've talked about, though, even if we're not talking about this, the strike itself. I mean, I think these are all valid points, because even if they come up with a resolution, these are things that in that, either in the resolution or whatever, they're going to have to think about going forward from this point on, because it is a completely different world. I mean, this is not something that they had to think about.
Yeah, even as recently as Endgame, and that wasn't that long ago. I mean, COVID really just upended everything. It just hit at just that exact moment when streaming had settled in, and they were like, well, we can't go to the theaters, but we still need to release the stuff we've got, so let's just dump it onto streaming. And everyone's like, wait, you could just do this now? Why do I go to the theater then? And then they've been afraid to dial it back. Plus, I think Universal has point blank said they have a 10-day strategy or something like that, where it's like 10 days later you can do it on streaming, and they're making money hand over fist doing it. And the others, I think, are just either not willing to commit to that, or they're scared to commit to it, or they think the Universal is just a fluke. And again, I think it's Universal. I could be wrong, but
and I think it may be the way that they're advertising too, because I don't think that they're advertising as heavily on other things. Because honestly, I mean, YouTube is where I usually find all of my, because I don't pay for any TV service. I don't even have Netflix right now for streaming. I only have
like I mentioned earlier, the whole they're advertising everywhere. They just need to make their trailer, put it on YouTube, pay some intern to throw some posts out on Twitter, Facebook, throw some stuff up on Reddit, and get their fake Reddit people to talk about it, because we all know they all employ fake Reddit people. But just talk it up and just throw it out on a few sites. Like, that's it. Just take the trailer you're already paying for and just spread it around. Or maybe make a few more trailers.
Well, hell, if they put it on YouTube, as long as it's not a red band trailer, I mean, hell, they'd make revenue on it too.
There you go.
But no, I mean, I think it's just finding that formula, because back in the day it was you'd go to a movie, you'd see a trailer at the during the movie, and you're like, oh crap, I want to see that, and you're like, well, this movie I'm watching right now was a trailer that I got excited for back when I watched this other movie. So it's just kind of a cascade of that.
Or it's like a Marvel movie, and the movie is the trailer for the other movie.
Yes, because you watch the end credits and you're like, okay, there you go.
All right, well, I got to catch part 2 now. All right. Which wasn't it? Back to the Future Part 2, I think, is one of the first movies that actually did that. Because at the end of the movie, it said specifically, Part 3 is coming. And like the James Bond movies used to do that too. At the very end, it would say James Bond will return, and it would mention the next movie.
I wonder if they put that at the end of of the last James Bond movie.
I'm pretty sure they did. It didn't say which movie, but it said James Bond will return.
Oh.
The one where he dies in the end? Yeah. Spoiler alert. It's still a good movie. You should watch it. But I like Daniel Craig as Bond. I thought he was pretty good. Although I'm number one will always be Connery. Like, never going to be beaten, in my opinion.
And see, that's one thing we should discuss, because
that's a movie. That's a video that's brewing. I've just got to figure out what all we can and can't say and clips we can use.
Because I'm definitely on the Roger Moore train.
I like Roger Moore. He's my second favorite.
Now, I think I think at one point he gets a little bit too old to play Bond, but and don't get me wrong, I love Connery. I have a hand-drawn portrait of Connery, so it's not that I don't like Connery. Don't get me wrong. It's I would bestow my Connery impersonation, but
everyone's got a Connery. Most of them are bad. I'm not going to try to do mine either.
It's not that bad. Looks pretty good. But
yeah, so like Jim said, these are all problems that Hollywood has, and like I said, I think my solution would be to dial back the movies, or figure out why it costs you $150 million to advertise a $300 million movie and try to cut that down to like $20 million, because I'm pretty sure you could do it.
Well, I mean,
if you did it right. Like you could spread it all over the damn internet for free. Aside from the actual cost of producing the trailer, the rest of it's free. It takes some I upload videos to YouTube. I know how this works. It takes you like 20 minutes tops to put all the stuff in there, let it process, and then go. And the only thing is, since it's a major studio production, of course, you're going to do a little announcement saying the trailer's coming, but that's it.
But even if you pay for services, I mean, the amount that you pay for those, like say if you pay for like the professional things for Facebook, for Twitter, for all of that, you're still not even talking that much money.
Yeah, there's no way you're talking tens of millions of dollars. You're just not.
No, and the thing is that if you're a major studio, you're paying that fee for each month, but you get to apply all of your movies to those platforms. It's not, and even if you pay for I'm going to put this out, I'm going to do some campaigns to get this out to more people, to pay for ads and stuff in Facebook. I don't know where people are. What are their?
Well, I think if I had to guess based on what limited I know about it, I'd say the money's going to TV advertising.
And why?
Well, yeah, that's the question: is why? When let's say you're Warner Brothers is tied with HBO, right? Okay, let's say you're Warner Brothers. Why are you don't advertise all over the place? Figure out who your demographic is, figure out what channel they go on, advertise on that channel. You don't have to have every commercial break. Just put it on that channel, and then put ads on HBO Max and on HBO. You own those channels. You own the airtime. You don't owe anyone anything to advertise there. Put it on the little scroll on HBO Max. Send out emails to your HBO Max subscribers saying, hey, check out our new movie in the theaters. Here's a link to the YouTube trailer. That's all you got to do.
Well, yeah, and if you own the streaming service, so like Paramount Plus, if you don't pay for the full subscription, they throw ads in there. Perfect place to put movies right there. Same thing. Right on your homepage, have a listing of trailers there so that you can see what's coming up in theaters. Give them a listing for trailers.
There
right
you go. Streaming. I don't even think they do that. That Disney Plus should do that. Put the trailers for your new stuff up there. Put it in the scroll. Advertise. Everyone that's a Disney Plus member, send them a monthly email. Don't dilute. Don't send them out all the time. Send them a monthly email like, hey, here's stuff coming out. Here's links to the trailers.
Or if you got a Disney Plus thing, offer maybe some sort of rebate if they actually go watch the movie. Because the thing about rebates for companies is that most of the time people don't go back and claim them because they're like, oh, I have to take a picture of this, I have to send this in, I have to do this, and they make it such a convoluted process. But people thinking that, hey, I could probably get this in for a little bit of extra money, put a seat in the theater. You only do it for one ticket and.
Yeah, I didn't even realize until I was halfway through the Indiana Jones movie that I had a receipt from Applebee's that I probably could have gotten a free ticket with. Didn't even think about it because it was like spur of the moment that I went to go watch the movie, and so I never bothered to redeem the ticket. So, yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do that are not going to cost $150 million. So, yeah, either that or it's factoring in all the foreign advertising or something. But something's got to give.
Well,
you cannot, the Indiana Jones movie is never going to turn a profit at this rate. And it's not a bad movie. Whenever I went to go see it, the theater was packed. Okay? Now I know we're a small town, middle of nowhere, but the theater was packed. And for a movie to cost $300 million to begin with, plus $150 million in advertising, and theoretically it has to make something like 3 times that to make any money, that movie was never going to make $1.5 billion. That's insane. And that's the problem, is that you're never going to recoup that money. And so all these people who depend on it, they're going to be like, hey, we need our cut, and there's no cut to have. Plus they're getting screwed on the streaming end too. You're going to run out of writers. Probably not actors, but they make enough that they can wait you out. The writers, the ones that are going to be hurting.
It also makes me wonder, when you sit there through the credits, away from that end credit scene, and you just see the amount of people that are listed on the end credits as, worked on the movie. It also makes you kind of go back and think, that's a lot of people. I'm wondering if
there's not some bloat there too.
Yeah, because if it's like, okay, well, I've got an assistant for my assistant, so that when my assistant needs something to drink, that the assistant's assistant goes off and gets that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely some of that going on.
Not that I wanted to say, oh, we need to start axing people, but there's at a point where it's like there's fat to be trimmed, and sometimes there's things out there where people are. Unfortunately aren't needed or redundant or
you're going to talk about fat to be trimmed. Did you see the thing about 3 days ago, as of this recording, where Bob Iger said that he's potentially open to like just selling off Disney piece by piece?
Yeah, because I saw about them wanting to sell ABC.
And he was talking more than that. He was talking like the whole company. But as near as I could tell. But yes, the TV divisions, he's definitely saying he wants to get rid of them because they're no longer aligned with their vision of things. And he might be right. But still, just like Disney, that 5 years ago, if you'd have told me they had cash problems, I would have, I would not believe any other thing you told me. If you then told me the sky was blue, I would double check to make sure it still was. Like, think about it. They were riding so high on the MCU movies. And, other things like the Pirates movies and everything else. And in that short amount of time, now they're potentially cash strapped to the point that they've got to sell off divisions and everything. Like, that just shows you how fast things can collapse.
Yeah, I think that one report said that they had around $200 million in liquid assets.
Yeah. And
that is crazy to imagine.
You wouldn't think about that for a company that's valued at like $10 billion, but...
No.
There you go.
So there's a movie that I would say not recent, but I mean that it shows a decline. Is the Pirates series? You go from the first few entries were okay. Like the first one I thought was great. I liked the first one. Second one, yeah, it was good, but not as great. And then just this.
I liked the first three. I did appreciate that the story could have closed with the third one, and everyone would be satisfied. We don't have to know how things wind up for every character. Jack Sparrow's just going to keep being a pirate. Okay, fine. That's all we actually need to know. But then the fourth one came in, and it wasn't terrible. And I don't even think I ever watched the fifth one. So yeah, I haven't watched the fifth one now that I think about it.
I think I've seen them all because. Which one? Because there's the one with...
The fourth ones are after the Fountain of Youth.
So the other one is...
Blackbeard's the enemy.
And then the fifth one's Balthasar, or the ghost.
Yeah.
The other ghost, not the...
Not the first set of ghosts.
Not the first... Well, they weren't ghosts. They were just...
They were skeletons.
They were skeletons.
And not the second group that were undead sea fish people. Yes, the ghost.
The ghost. But... No, it's just seeing a steady decline in the quality of the scripts and stuff. I mean, the visuals always stayed on par, but
yeah,
it's just I think that there needs to be a look back, and not a let's go back and reboot all these things. It's go back, look at what made these movies great. In the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s.
Or at least the essence of that, because like Jim said earlier, some of those movies, even though they're perfectly fine, people today would complain far too much about them, so they just wouldn't succeed.
Yeah,
but if you can capture the essence.
I don't think Weekend at Bernie's would succeed again going forward.
I was on TV the other day and I watched part of that, and the whole time I was like, man, I can't believe I actually watched this movie once and thought it was kind of entertaining. I mean, that's novel. How it ever got a sequel with the same dead dude being carted around everywhere.
But didn't they have voodoo?
I think he had voodoo to actually like animate. But still, shouldn't his body have been decomposing by that point?
Yeah, or be stiff.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's supposed to take place like immediately.
Oh, I'm sure.
But even then, though, rigor mortis kind of takes place a little bit before then. But
yeah, but that's something I mentioned earlier in one of our other videos, folks. Sequelitis. It's where your movie succeeds, so we've got to make a sequel, but you have no earthly idea how to do it, and you didn't plan for it in the first one. So it just seems like another adventure in the same universe that's loosely connected to the first one.
That's like, I've never seen the sequel to Journey to the Center of the Earth, but they did make a sequel, the one with
Brendan Fraser?
Yeah, because they made a sequel, one with The Rock.
I didn't watch either one, so.
Yeah, neither one was really.
In fact, I think I've only seen one of the 20 Journey to the Center of the Earth movies. There's a lot of them.
Because I think the one with The Rock was Journey to the Mysterious Island.
Yeah, the one I watched involved giant stop-motion bees and dinosaurs and stuff. So it's definitely from the 60s or 70s. But anyway.
Yeah, Journey to the Mysterious Island, and then, the hell is this?Journey 3 from the Earth to the Moon.
Because why not?
What the hell?
Are they going to follow a tunnel to the moon somehow?
Well, as long as they don't get the Iron Sky, Yeah,
they might be in for a rude awakening when they get to the moon. So yeah, I mean, the overarching point here is there are problems that Hollywood needs to address. They might be able to address them in the writers, in the resolution of the writers and actors strike. Maybe not. Here's hoping. But there's other structural problems that are going to just bring this topic back up in 5 years if they don't resolve them now. And Hollywood is not a machine that turns on a dime. We'll probably still have years of big budget productions that just crash and burn. Because it takes almost 2 years, if you're lucky, to bring a movie from start of filming to actually being out there, because it just takes so long with the effects and stuff like that. Yeah, so anyway, hopefully there is a resolution that works in everyone's favor. Like we said back at the beginning, I think we both feel that most of their concerns are valid concerns.
But but at the same time, I believe people should get paid for their work, but their work, they should also get paid for the type of work that they do, that they submit. If you're submitting 2 scripts and one's heap of garbage and one's a masterpiece, I think the one that wrote the masterpiece should get paid more than the one that wrote the heap of garbage, because you should get paid for the quality of your work. I mean, if I'm selling a painting, if I draw a stick man and then I draw a Picasso, I expect the Picasso to get paid more. Speaking of that, that's another one that I don't get anymore, is art, where you can paint a blue stripe on a painting and sell it for $1 million.
You got me. I'm pretty sure it's all a giant money laundering scheme. I've seen a few videos that make that claim, and they've got some things to back it up. Well,
the same thing. There's a lot of stuff they've done that, like with
there was the one with the banana taped on there with duct tape. Then the guy came up and ate the banana.
No, I was gonna say there's a lot of
ruined masterpiece. Ridiculous.
Well, no, I was gonna say there's a lot of things out there where they're trying to overhype stuff and try to make it worth more than it is. They did that with coins, and then now there's a thing with the video games where they're trying to overinflate the price of sealed video games, where they're trying to say a sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers is worth $1.5 million. And
a sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, and just like they do with comics, they rate them. And
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that the last Action Comics #1 that went up for auction, I think sold for a couple $1 million. And that's a comic from 1930-something that there can't be that many copies of left on the planet. Versus Super Mario Brothers, a mass-produced video game cartridge from the 1980s.
And I was going to say, as a video game collector, while I do like the fact that things are worth more now, like it makes my collection worth more, at the same time, it makes collecting way harder.
Getting the rest of it harder.
Yes. And some of it's just a inflation for no reason other than people are just driving up the price. Now,
I feel you on this one, Jim, with the comic books.
Like if it's really a rarity, fine. If it's not, if there's 10 million copies floating around and somehow that is, some video game is still going for $200 or $300, I'm just like,
Yeah, well, that's like the comment I made in the X-Men video about X-Men #1 from the '90s. Still the highest-selling comic ever. I think it sold over 1 million issues, which means it's worthless. The reason it sold so many was because of speculators, because they're like, all right, they're relaunching it #1. Jim Lee's on the artwork. Claremont's still writing. Like it was lightning in a bottle. But then everyone bought a copy, so they printed a bajillion copies of it. And so yeah, now the copies are basically worthless. They're worth, I think it's slightly over cover price. In the E in particular is worth like $2 over the cover price maybe. So because people just have boxes full of them. I mean,
well, I would say that's actually kind of a good analogy for these movies. Is that they're putting so much money into it, expecting that they're going to get so much out of it.
Yeah,
and they're really not. They're producing movies that are not even up as. I'd say that the quality is good. I mean, obviously they all look visually great.
Yeah, visual sounds great, but it's a mediocre movie.
Yeah, and which is fine. Mediocre movies are fine. Like
if they cost you $50 million.
Yeah, I mean, if I go watch The Expendables, I expect The Expendables to cost 100 mil would be at the top end of what I would expect them to pay on it, because it should be just mindless action, and
it's a couple of big action pieces that are mostly practical effects. It's a bunch of actors that they're all known, but to call any of them like A-list demanding $30 million a piece would be ridiculous. Like maybe Stallone, but he's producing them, so he's getting his money on the back end in all likelihood.
Well, I don't know. I seen on the latest Expendables 4 poster, Statham's name is listed at the top above Stallone's.
Well, maybe. I mean, he's at this point in his career, he's probably the bigger star.
But anyways,
like Vin Diesel isn't going to roll in there and demand $30 million and get a yes. There's a whole story about that. I think it's for XXX, he wanted $30 million, and that was only because they paid Arnold $30 million for whichever Terminator movie came just before that. And he's like, well, I'm not going to be second fiddle to that. So he demanded $30 million. And then, like, a lot of other people tried that, and no, they got a no. Not going to happen. So that's why he wasn't in the sequel.
But he came back in the third movie.
Yeah, I don't care. I didn't watch the third movie because I thought, hey, weren't they pretty clear that he got killed in the second movie? Like, they clearly spelled that out. So I was like, no, I didn't care for the second movie either. So I thought the first one was okay. It's a mindless action movie, but that's,
I mean, in the books, Jeff Goldblum's character died in Jurassic Park.
There you go.
And they had to write him back into the Lost World.
Well, I mean, Jim, that goes as far back that goes back at least to Sherlock Holmes. He dies in one of the books with Moriarty. Basically how he died in the second Robert Downey Jr. movie. Two of them fell into a lake, and so then just in the beginning of the next book, because it was so popular, it's just him climbing up out of the lake. That's happening in
does he disguise himself as an armchair?
I don't know that he does that. I suspect he does not.
Well, you said Sean Connery came back in the Highlander movies after, but that was just not time travel stuff. That was just in the past, right?
No, and he gets killed in Highlander 1 back in the past.
Yes.
Highlander 2, you find out that they're in the regular version of the movie. You find out they're aliens. The other version, you find out they're from the distant past. Either way, it's stupid. Well, let's stick with aliens for a moment. In the opening scene, while they're still on the alien planet, the two of them form some kind of magic bond. Okay? And then they get sentenced to exile on Earth where they have to fight each other. And so, in the future, whenever Michael Ironside's character, his name I completely forget, sends goons to kill Christopher Lambert's character, because he's just too impatient to watch him die of old age, even though he's going to die like any minute now. So he sends his other two goons back. Well, McLeod takes out the two goons, and by like absorbing their power and everything, becomes a young man again. And so then he uses the juice from that to call out to Ramirez, and Ramirez just pops back into existence in Scotland, where he died, and then has to take a plane to the America.
Yes, that's how it works.
Yeah, and then later on in the movie, there's a moment where like one of them's got to sacrifice themselves to stop something. He's like, I'm dead already. Like, I'll take care of it. You guys go.
So he dies again?
Yes, crushed by a giant ceiling fan. I mean, like, probably talking. The thing probably weighed a ton and had giant metal blades and everything. Like it probably decapitated him as it came down. That was the whole point, was to lock them into a chamber that was going to kill them, because the people knew they were coming.
So not all. So what you're saying is not all older movies were really that great either.
Oh no, no. Older movies are subject to I can't remember the law, but essentially it says that 90% of everything produced is crap. It's just that we've had decades to sift the crap out, and we're left with the 10% that's the gems, the diamonds in the rough. It's the same thing in music. Like everyone's like, oh, 60s and 70s music is great, and I happen to agree. However, there's a hell of a lot of crap they just don't play on the radio anymore. Yeah. We're left with the good, the quality, and maybe, during the 90s, I would have never said that about 90s music, but now looking back on it, there's 90s music I like. Because I remember the good part of the 90s music and not all the crap. And maybe 10 years from now, we'll look at the 2010s and the 2020s and be like, oh, the golden age of whatever the hell we'll lie to ourselves about. And say that, hey, 10% of the stuff was good stuff. Because 10% of it probably is good stuff. But we're in the middle of the crap. We can't, it's hard to actively sift it out when you're in the middle of it. It takes time. So
yeah, I just don't see myself saying, yeah, this was a great time for movies.
I mean, probably not, but we'll have those few that we'll look back on, like Infinity War and Endgame, like, man, those were spectacular, or Spider-Man No Way Home, or some other Marvel movies that I'm just going to keep going on with here. Maybe we'll look back on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and think, that actually wasn't that bad. I do think it wasn't that bad, but in hindsight, I'm sure at some point we'll think it's better than it was.
I still haven't done that to Spider-Man 3 yet. Maybe it's time.
The Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3?
Yes.
Yeah. That one maybe not, which is a shame because Spider-Man 2 is still one of my favorite superhero movies ever.
This is one of those movies like I tried to watch and I couldn't even watch it all the way through. Spider-Man 3 is just like, no, I got to shut this off. Like there's just some scenes that I can't.
Yeah,
I can't. The whole dance sequence, I'm like, no. God, no.
Oh, come on, Jim. That was awesome.
Anyways, so.
I think we've covered the strike and the what we view as the possible solutions and some other just wildly diverging all over the place since we're talking about movies.
What you look forward to with your when you get old, your mind just starts meandering all over the place. You have no clue where the hell you're going to go.
We're like in our very early 40s. Like, this isn't old.
I know. I can only imagine how the hell it's going to go.
The nursing home is going to be an interesting experience if this is the case.
Yeah. I can only imagine what the 50s, 60s, and hell, even if I make it to my 70s will bring. So
yeah. So anyway, let us know what you guys think. Because I think we're probably at the end of the ramble here.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the strike itself? Justified, unjustified? Is AI going to be a problem for them going forward? Are they going to find a solution that satisfies everybody, or are we all going to be back here in 5 years? And plus the other myriad topics we discussed here. Just let us know what you think down in the comments. We always appreciate those. Speaking of which, we did have one, because I'm pretty sure this is going to that this video will be up before what I'm about to mention. So I'm going to go ahead and mention it real quick, just in case you actually watched. Did have a gentleman comment on our Alien video as far as the how we'd fix it. And he brought up something that I don't think any of us brought up. And so we're probably actually going to do a video answer to that. If we were to take the route the gentleman, I believe it's the man, I'm sorry if you're not, but by the writing and everything, I believe he is, that he mentioned. And so we're going to do a video topic on that. I don't want to give it away here. Obviously, you can see it in the comments if you don't want to read it yourself. But we are kicking around the idea of doing that. So hopefully we will. So look out for another Alien video shortly. It should follow this one in the order. But other than that, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Check out our Twitter and YouTube accounts. There should be links in the description. But other than that,
you thinking of something for an exit? How about this? Remember to check in on us on the same geek channel at the same geek time?
Oh, I was going to go for something like Hell No, We Won't Go because it's the strike thing. But yeah, that works too. Let's go with that.
I'm going Adam West Batman on this one.
All right, fair enough. Adam West is awesome as Batman.
All right.
So yeah, same geek time, same geek channel.